Welcome to the EarthWorks podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Simmons, and this is the EarthWorks podcast. We are back in the studio as we were last week with our chemist, our friend Lawrence Mayhew, and of course our agronomist, Jack Higgins. And last week we spent a lot of time talking about a tour that we had on a farm and related it to what's going on in our world. We want to get into some more science today, I guess, right?
Great.
We want to talk about how the plant interacts with the rhizosphere. You've got a whole bunch of technical terms. And we want to talk a little bit about some of the ingredients that we have been very fond of over the years that help us really activate the biological piece of the soil. And remember, what we talk about here is biological soil management. So even though we're feeding the turf plants and the ornamentals, we're also making sure that the rhizosphere, the biology in that rhizosphere is a very big part of it. And as we talked about last week, remineralization. I mean, that's one of the big things.
What I'm psyched about this conversation is that biological soil management is so important. But there's one word in there that limits us a little bit: soil. And I think we're going to get in a little bit into other biological environments that are right there. So I'm excited about this.
And we kind of talked about that with the tour with Rich, and how he talked about how the plants changed his fields.
That's right, plants.
The plants, were able to make this nutrient change in the fields, and that interaction. I mean, the symbiosis between plants and microbe and soil and the minerals. I mean,
microbes are everywhere, not just in the root zone. They're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry's favorite term was "microbes eat at the table first." We heard that from our tour guide a couple of weeks ago when we had that tour. But the three of us have talked about rhizophagy, which is that fascinating new science that Dr. White came up with at Rutgers, talking about how microbes come into the plant. I mean, some of the stuff that's going on is fascinating. And, I've been doing this in EarthWorks for 35 years, and to sit here at this point in my career and say, wow, I didn't know that. That's new. That's interesting, and so we're going to talk a little bit about the plant and about some of the things that we're doing to feed the whole process. And we'll try to break down, in particularly the Foliar Plus product line, we'll try to break down a little bit about the raw materials that we're using in these products so you understand why these are choices for us to get into these products. And Lawrence, as you know, has really been working very closely with us in formulating that whole liquid product line and reformulating it. I would like you to kind of introduce this again. You just revamped everything to what we now call EcoAdaptive.
Yes.
And you started that with K-Vantage, which is really becoming one of our strongest products. I mean, it's so clean, it works so well, and we're actually seeing the potassium getting in it. I just recommended it pretty strongly to a client on a baseball field, and they always were battling sodium potassium issues. Started using the K-Vantage, and now that balance is really fairly tight. And we're in the middle of July now in the Northeast. A lot of sodium's going out there in irrigation.
Last night on our call, you, Lawrence, defined the eco-adaptive formulations, I thought, really well, quite simply.
Okay.
Do you remember how to do that?
I remember how to do that.
I know you've slept since then.
Well, let's see. Let's give this a shot. I coined the term eco-adaptive to try to explain to people this approach to what has generally been termed as balancing. And I've gone to an awful lot of presentations where we balance this, or we have a balanced fertilizer. Well, what's a balanced fertilizer? And this word balance always confused me because I was studying natural soil systems and trying to figure out what does that balance look like? How did nature? What is the natural ratio, for example, of calcium and magnesium in a natural soil?
Okay, ratios.
Yeah, they're ratios, and these are molecular ratios. They're not ratios by weight, which is very misleading. A pound of feathers doesn't look anything like a pound of lead. Okay, so at molecular ratios, a one molecular unit, or 1 mole, as it's defined as, of lead is identical in molecular science to 1 mole of feathers. Let's say 1 mole of protein that are in the feathers. So now we can actually examine something tit for tat
Got it.
Did I use the naughty word? Yeah.
It's a podcast. You can say whatever you want.
It's in other words, looking at it from chemistry, looking at it from the periodic table to try to make sense of how do we take our chemistry knowledge, which I was horribly misled in college to believe certain things that have panned out to be not quite right.
In natural systems.
Yeah, once you start
Which
studying,
is the key thing.
yeah, which is you start looking at natural systems. Say, well, how much calcium is there in the soil solution in natural systems? No, ironically, happens to be one millimole, which is 1/1000th of the molecular weight of calcium.
Oh my.
So it's not a lot.
Yeah, no, not a lot at all.
In nature, you never find overwhelming numbers. Like when you do a tag guarantee on a fertilizer label, it's in percent. That's parts per 100. You never see parts per 100 in nature.
Yeah,
So looking at this
interesting.
ecologically, how do we balance something based upon natural ecological balances that are discoverable, and you can put them into a spreadsheet and then try to mimic that? And that's the basis of the EcoAdaptive technique.
Let's talk about, and you brought this up, and you've brought this up a number of times, but chemistry.
Yes.
And I've shared this story a number of times. I have a dear friend who works in the perfume industry, and she lives by the scientific method. It's reductionist chemistry, one of Jerry's favorite terms. Reductionist chemistry. So, her whole job is to take a molecule and break it down to that one little thing that gives you that scent that she wants to sell. And she and I would have the biggest fights because I say in a biological world, it goes the opposite way. It's dynamic. It's not reductionist. And that's where academia and we kind of have this battle. And I'm not trying to be critical of anybody. Well, maybe a little bit. But the bottom line is that this is a natural environment, and the interactions, the dynamics of that environment are biological now, not just chemical. Yes, there's lots of chemistry, but they're being affected by the biological piece of it all. So, when you started with the EcoAdaptive, you were dealing with the chemistry, but having to kind of get it to fit within a natural environment so that the system would work the way the field works when you're out there growing turf grass or alfalfa or whatever it is you're growing.
Well, the whole fertilizer industry, the whole fertilizer philosophy, the whole dogma is based upon solubility. So then I asked a simple question one day. How much soluble material is there in natural soil solution then? Boy, was that hard to find.
Okay.
I mean, hey, wait a minute. Our whole industry is based upon solubility. You don't know anything about solubility in soils. What is naturally soluble in soil? I just gave you an example. Calcium is the most prevalent soluble molecule in solution in natural soil solution.
We see that on the paste extract as well.
And over the whole world, in all soil systems that have not been fertilized, these are unfertilized natural soils, it's 1 millimole.
Wow, and that's the most soluble. That
is the highest number in the whole system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Millimole, which is nothing.
And the lowest numbers are nitrates and phosphates.
So
practically non-existent.
So when you take that sort of approach, to product formulation, but products have intent. Products have intent. So we're not going to build something that only has 1 millimole. We're not building a natural soil system in a jug. So how do we
The overwhelming thing that I learned from this study are the ratios, these molecular ratios, not the amount, but the molecular ratios.
Okay,
so if the molecular ratio of calcium, magnesium in soil systems is 4:1, then that would be the
in a natural system.
In a natural system, that would, in my opinion, that would be the natural ratio. Not talking quantity now.
Right.
Natural ratio that you'd like to apply.
So you started this whole process by gathering data on natural systems and the ratios of the minerals that you found over this huge database that you and your wife collected over years.
Yes.
And that's where this whole concept came from. So this is not something that you just sat down one night over dinner and said, "Hey, I think I'll do it this way."
No.
This was, I mean, you and I have talked over the years. I mean, the database that you have on this thing is massive. So you studied that natural database, the ratios found in a whole slew of soil tests, and then started building that protocol for EcoAdaptive.
Right. Then the next step
was quite brilliant in my mind. But
thank you. The next step was to actually look at the periodic table and realize that if you find a calcium mineral, for example, in nature, it's almost always associated with strontium.
Okay.
Oh, what's that? Well, come to find out that then there's this enzyme in all these biological systems, including us, where calcium utilization is controlled. In other words, you don't want to step on the accelerator pedal and get all the calcium you possibly can into your system.
Right.
You don't want to step on the accelerator pedal and get all the calcium you can into that plant. That plant has to be modulated.
Yes.
What modulates calcium? Strontium.
Strontium.
And you look on the periodic table, strontium is the first element underneath calcium.
We did this.
We've
I
hit
think
this
here
in
on the
other
podcast.
podcasts.
Yeah.
We looked at the periodical table. Like, oh, I didn't know that. That's why they're right next to each other.
Well, when you're a trained chemist, they say now when you go into the lab and you study calcium, they make sure you get rid of all the strontium because it's a contaminant and it behaves exactly like calcium, so you will be confused. Now you go, wait a minute.
Wait a second.
Behaves exactly like calcium.
They work together.
They work
not
together.
calcium,
But it turns out there's an enzyme called calmodulin.
Okay.
And calmodulin is an enzyme. Enzymes are driven by cofactors that we learned from our dear friend Jerry Bernetti. And these cofactors actually do modulate enzymatic activity because every once in a while you want to back off the accelerator pedal, right?
That's
So
right.
now
neuron
what?
theory.
Now what? You can't not get rid of the calcium that's already there. So what happens in these calmodulin enzymatic systems? Strontium takes. How biology figured this out is quite
divine.
amazing.
We'll never know that.
No, we'll never know that. But in natural systems, strontium will replace calcium to modulate the activity of calcium. Okay, now we got the answer. You bring
And
in
boron has got to play in this too, right?
boron. Definitely, it
Yeah.
plays a synergistic role with utilization of calcium.
Getting I
Right,
see. Different.
And it's on the total opposite of the periodic table.
Right.
But
Jerry used to call it the gatekeeper. It's
So-
the gatekeeper to open the door to let calcium.
what about potassium?
in. There you go.
Okay, rubidium.
Okay.
All right.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
again, you saw that in this database. that you're
Again,
working
well,
on. And it's right next.
well,
to
we saw
potassium.
fixed ratios among all these different things. So then I got to thinking, why don't we enhance these products to make sure that they have the cofactors in them that are needed for enzymatic activity in the
Yes.
plant? And the microbes need the same thing. So we bring strontium into a calcium product. We bring rubidium, for example, into a potassium product.
Which
What,
our
our
manufacturer
products?
loves having to put into the products, but he's figured it out.
So
I mean, none of this
I
is
sent
easy.
him a gram scale so he could measure.
I mean, none of
These
this
are-
is easy, but
these
it
are
makes
ultra
sense.
trace elements, and he had to literally measure grams in a 1,500 gallon batch.
Batch. He's making 1,500 gallons
Yeah.
of measuring grams, but this.
So you would think, okay, that's going to disappear in 1,500 gallons. Nope, I can measure it. It's measurable.
and you
at the
can
lab.
find it out.
Yeah,
in
it's
the lab.
there. It's
Oh,
there.
interesting.
It wasn't there on previous tests. Now that we've modified the products based on that, it's all detectable. It's all measured.
And it's interesting because we get a lot of time. Oh, that's not going to make any impact at all. I mean, it's so small. So I
Yeah.
mean, some of these elements.
Yeah.
The plant's not going to use that, but in fact,
like molybdenum.
yeah, which was one of Jerry's favorite.
Extremely
trace
ultra
elements,
trace
yeah.
quantities of molybdenum.
But these are the interactions that you identified by studying
Yes.
natural soils.
So then we asked the question, how can we balance these materials based upon eco-adaptive principle rather than just percentage by weight?
And that was a lot of that was bringing down the big element, like the calcium or the potassium, so that the little ones could interact a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, you don't need high concentrations of calcium to get calcium uptake in a plant. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
In fact, this is really interesting. There's no scientific evidence that the more you put into the soil system and becomes part of the soil system, the more that's there, the plant takes up more of that. That's not the way it works at all. There's no evidence to support that. What really happens is that through mass flow, momentarily that plant root intersects some flow of highly soluble material, and then it gets a benefit from that momentarily, and the rest of it goes to the Gulf of Mexico.
That's right.
And the plant momentarily gets a benefit from that, but does never grow a large root ball for resistance.
Yeah.
But momentarily in the lab, when the academia was measuring this and trying to prove it, they could. Be like
Oh, yeah.
in those simple experiments,
Yeah.
and so that
In the test tube.
and that happened 100 years ago, and we've still been going.
And
by it.
again, what you're doing is you're bringing now Mother Nature into the equation and saying, okay, we take it out of the test tube, we bring it into a soil environment that is extremely dynamic. What's actually going on there?
So-
and that just makes perfect sense.
The bottom line is that thermodynamic efficiencies improve because if you have a highly soluble material passing past that plant momentarily, that system has to provide a lot of energy to stabilize that highly unstable sulfate, phosphate, salt of some sort. That has to be stabilized by that system, and momentarily that plant's going, holy cow, what's this? And then they have to bring it in, and then they futile this material, they spit it back out. That takes energy.
It takes a lot of energy.
That takes
We
a
talk
lot of
about
energy.
what
Yeah.
weakens a natural system. It's the removal
Yeah,
of
they
energy.
totally ignored the thermodynamics of these soil systems. When
Thermodynamics, by the way, energy. We should.
It's
say.
energy flow.
Yeah.
It's energy flow through systems.
So you had said
Yeah.
thermodynamics efficiency, energy efficiency.
Yeah, it's efficiency.
So we're trying
It's
to.
things the plant doesn't have to waste its energy on.
The
anymore.
whole biological system doesn't have to waste.
And when it
energy.
is wasting its energy on that, it's stressing itself to the point
Stress.
where you walk 40,000 people all over and they stample on that
Stress.
weakened, stressed plant. It doesn't make it.
Doesn't make it then.
I want we're talking about that these are efficient for biological systems for biology. I want to introduce 3 different separate locales into this biological systems idea. We talk often about the rhizosphere. And that is one of the 3 locales. The other 2, the endosphere and the phyllosphere. So these are all different areas in and around that plant that microbes exist and interact with the plant, and they all relate to these Foliars Plus products, and they're considered in that nutrient uptake.
And
so
we've mostly talking about the rhizosphere.
we always talk
Mostly.
about the rhizosphere.
That's kind of
When
what
we
we've
talk
always
about
talked about.
microbes, we say soil microbes,
Yeah.
soil microbes, but
Rhizosphere,
microbes
rhizosphere.
are everywhere,
Yes.
right?
But when we talk about feeding the soil, then Dr. White's research came along showing that
The
plant roots,
rhizophagy.
the rhizophagy actually indicates that the plant roots intentionally eat microbes.
So what
and
you're
bring them
defining
in
now
into
is-
the endosphere.
That's right.
They bring them into the endosphere of the plant.
Explain endosphere, just so we all understand.
That's the inside of the plant.
There you go.
Yeah, into
Endo,
the cell,
endo.
into the cell. So there's
Right.
microbes that are entering into the cell.
Rhizophagy.
Yeah, right, right,
Rhizo meaning root, phagy meaning eat.
right.
These roots are eating microbes.
I think there was a turf talk on that one.
Oh yeah, we've done a couple. A real
Root
good
eat.
one.
Root
eat.
So yeah, let's feed the microbes because they're taking the nutrients to the plant.
Right. Okay. Yes. So, and that's something we do.
If this is how the plant eats, why would you try to feed the plant?
Yes, yes. Now, we right before this podcast, we pushed record. We were kind of answering a question, or you had brought up a scenario. You're like, we get such a wonderful green up response on turf, on a lot of plants that get sprayed or drenched, but let's say particularly sprayed because that's indicating foliar, right?
Yeah.
We get such a wonderful green up response with a product that has no nitrogen.
Essentially no nitrogen.
Essentially no
Protein.
nitrogen.
Yeah.
Well, the nitrogen that is in it is organic nitrogen. It's complexed inside of
Yes.
amino acids.
Right. It's primarily in the fish hydrolysate. Right.
And what are we talking about?
Oh, sorry.
C3.
C3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
such a
that's-
cool product, and you do get a great green up response of it.
Which flies in the face of let's pour on more nitrogen to get a green up, or a lot of iron.
Yeah, so
to get good green up.
So because I had said you had said okay, it's the amino acids that contain the
That's
nitrogen,
right.
and I'm thinking,
You know what amino group is? It's an NH group. That's nitrogen and hydrogen group attached to a
protein.
carboxylic
all
acid.
there.
It's an amino acid.
Yeah.
The amino acids get into the plant. They're converted eventually to complete proteins. Now we have disease resistance
and I had
and green up.
Yeah, and green up and disease resistance. And I had said, now wait, I'm a little miffed because I have clients that are using this product at relatively low carrier volumes. So
Yes.
really, there's a lot of this material that's only getting on the leaf. It's
Right.
not necessarily, or certainly not right away, getting washed down into the rhizosphere, where microbes could break down that amino acid and deliver that NH4, deliver that nitrogen. So how are we getting this green up?
Now it's on the phyllosphere.
Yeah, that's what sparked us to say, well, you
the
had said,
phyllosphere is
you had said, well, microbes are doing it. Microbes are still doing it,
Right.
Because microbes are everywhere.
There is a microbial population on the surface of the plant,
Phyllosphere.
phyllosphere. And it's very active surface. So if you apply something like high sulfate, high nitrate, high salt of any sort to the phyllosphere, it shuts that activity down also. So you're losing a big chunk of the biological activity of a plant if you would totally ignore what's going on in the phyllosphere.
And think about the golf industry. I mean, we're talking about a plant that's an eighth of an inch. So
Right.
anything you spray
Is
is now
foliar.
covering that foliar, as
That's-
opposed to a grape leaf or
Right.
a tree or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, everything is covered.
Yeah, you might have a soil corrective or amendment,
Right.
but you still are applying it foliar.
I just want to interject because when this came up earlier when we were talking, it was really heartwarming because you guys both had the memory of Jerry talking about this.
Yeah.
You both perked up here
Right.
a lot and said Jerry Vernetti talked about the fire.
I think we actually even have some tape of him. We should find that and bring it to the podcast.
I first heard about it at one of Jerry's
Mighty
presentations. Yeah, the phyllosphere. Yeah, that's something that's generally ignored.
What are the microbes?
Our
Do you know?
skin is the same way.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. But it's generally ignored. But because that we've had these different mantras in product formulation, EcoAdaptive, but diversity, carbon sources. It's generally ignored, but not really, because Jerry built these products to hit each one of these areas and this whole biological system, both phyllo, endo, and rhizosphere.
Well, I was in charge of Jerry's formulations for 7 years, and that whole time I'm always asking the question. Now, when I look at this formulation for this product, what was he thinking? Why do you not?
What the hell was going on in your
How
head?
does this product green up when it doesn't have hardly any nitrogen in it, and it works fantastic? So trying to learn that all these years, and the first opportunity I had to take a shot at formulating for this company was that no phosphate.
Oh, that's right.
For New York,
Yes.
for New York City.
That's right. That's right.
For the Central Park.
Exactly. And that was So you
No
really
phosphate.
No phosphate.
No phosphate.
And you also then
Guess what? You cannot get rid of all the phosphate.
That's right.
It's there. It's in minuscule form, which is ideal
Yes.
for a product that you want to deliver some phosphate. Do something else that'll release the phosphate out of the soil system instead.
Oh yeah, I really like it.
And it works. It's been proven
worked.
to work incredibly well. I mean, it's the results that we've seen.
And we got to have green up, Lawrence. That was my
Yes,
marching
that was the
orders.
other
Okay,
thing.
well, I'm not going to do it with iron.
No.
No way.
You took the principles of eco-adaptive chemistry and created balance between ratios so that you
Right.
can express.
So what we're shooting for here is something that's more sustainable. So if you pop up some green with some iron sulfate, yeah, good, but you got to do it again and again and again. You got to keep feeding that thing iron.
And it's probably hurting the phyllosphere.
Well, iron is such a chemically reactive cation in soil systems that it is eventually it's devastating to the system.
Yeah.
It's out of balance now, out of ecological balance.
It's easy to overuse it.
The first time I got to treat the phyllosphere issue was with K-Vantage.
Oh, okay. So how?
Well, my research.
And what was your thought?
Well, I thought, I want potassium to be absorbed through this leaf system.
I heard you. I don't know if everyone got to hear it. You said ab.
Yeah, ab.
Yeah, there's a difference between
Right.
absorption and
Yes.
adsorption.
Yes.
And it is.
Well, adsorption is when something actually clings to, like a soil microbe, for example. It'll sit there momentarily waiting to do its job. It's not absorbed within the particles to the point where it disappears into solution, for example. So there's a big difference. Adsorption is really the way soil systems work. But absorption in relative to the phyllosphere means that what can we put on that leaf surface that'll actually be transferred from the leaf surface and bioactive through the phyllosphere activity,
Microbial.
and then be pulled in through whatever mechanism, stomata or whatever, into the plant? Well, I found out that potassium sulfate won't, to a degree. Potassium chloride kills it. So I researched bunches of potassium
Sources.
Potassium chemistry, came up with potassium acetate, potassium formate, and potassium carbonate will move across that system and get inside of the plant into the endosphere.
So you just gave away the whole secret to K-Vantage, right?
It's on the list.
That stuff's out.
Right.
Something like that.
But it works. I mean, we had it out in the beta trials for a year, and and guys that were dealing with lots of sodium issues.
Yeah.
And then we talk about this all the time. The balance between sodium and potassium is critical, or sodium just going to flush in. This is actually getting through the leaf to a great extent, also getting into the rhizosphere. But we're allowing better uptake, better utilization of that potassium because you've got a source that makes sense.
I had an ulterior motive.
Okay.
Of course you do.
Well,
I have an apple tree right outside of the bedroom window.
Me.
Well,
I love it.
Hey, honey.
field testing. That's what we're
It
after.
never had a crop. The tree's 12, 13 years old. I planted it myself, and it had classic potassium deficiency symptoms.
Okay.
And diagnosed it years ago. I put on
You
everything.
can see by the leaf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very little foliage and no production. You go out there to pick the apple, and the bird either got it first or it was full of worms.
Yeah.
Or deformed. Oh, it just shaped.
And they were spitting it out because it was all.
This sucks. There's no potassium in this.
Right.
So when I started developing that product, I thought, how can I field test this? I laid out some test plots out in the field where the grasses are, but I also sprayed that tree. The product didn't get developed until midsummer, way past blossoming time, which is a critical stage. So I missed a critical stage for potassium.
Okay,
Because of just time. And that tree, now here's what happened in the first year.
Yes.
The same number of apples, the same deformity, everything looked the same, except the leaves stayed on all the way to Thanksgiving.
Oh,
and I'm in
big
Wisconsin. I'm in Wisconsin.
Yeah, big
And I'm
difference.
Going, whoa, what happened here?
Turgidity.
I was
changed?
hoping for a miracle, but I got leaves.
Okay. First step.
So
First step.
the next year I sprayed it pre-blossom, then I
Yes.
sprayed it post-blossom. These are critical stress stages for an apple
And
tree.
also, this is foliar spraying. This
Foliar.
is not drenching.
I got
This is-
clay.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I'm not going to
The
get anything down
rhizosphere.
there. Nothing,
Right.
yeah.
It's a
So,
good field test.
I got hard pan. This used to be corn on corn on corn on corn before they put our house there. So it's just clay. There's no organic matter left in it.
Right. They took
It's
everything
gone.
out.
Totally
Everything
gone.
was removed.
It's like this floor.
Yeah.
So got to be foliar, and got really decent apple production off of it. And again, I saw that stage of leaf on very, very late going into winter with snow on it this time. Now
love
with the
it.
third year of having developed
It never leaves. They never fall. They just stay all year round.
the tree limbs when I left home are hanging down like this, full of apples. Beautiful green foliage.
Oh,
This-
How's the apples?
I don't know, they're green.
Oh, this is this crop.
Yeah, they're about that big around right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And we trim that tree so we can walk under it, so we can mow it.
Yes.
And they're right here.
Oh, wow.
Those limbs are down. I have never seen that on that
Oh,
tree.
this is remarkable. So,
So-
this was K-Vantage.
It's anecdotal. It's just K-Vantage.
It's anecdotal,
But-
but it makes sense.
For this little guy in Wisconsin, it's like, oh my gosh, it worked. It worked. It
You did
worked.
the same thing with C3 with one of your ornamental grasses.
Well, I went to his house a few years ago.
Yes.
He's got these
Miscanthus,
beautiful
right?
miscanthus sinensis grasses. And I said, hey, I've got miscanthus sinensis too, but they're like chest high. you know?
Right, right.
And I said, what did you do to them? He says, I put C3 on.
That's all I did.
So I used to go out there in the spring when you're supposed to cut them back. You just grab them like that and whack them off with a chop,
Shoots,
chop.
yeah.
I got to get out. I got to mount the blade and the weed whacker and zing, zing, zing.
Oh,
and then
right,
you'd
the
pick up
reciprocator.
bales of this dry matter and
Yes.
carry it off.
Biomass.
Yeah,
Feeding
biomass. These
cows,
things
man.
are 8, 10 foot tall and they're beautiful, disease free, and yeah,
Carbon sequestration.
There you go.
Love it.
yep.
Yeah. So again, we're really talking about absorption through this phylosphere.
Yes.
But that absorption doesn't happen necessarily unless we're treating that microbial system to make that to break down the amino acids to help that absorption happen.
So
Process.
the miscanthus was treated foliar with C3.
Yeah.
So now
So was mine.
so we know there's a great degree of
Something's
phylosphere compatibility there.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept, and it really does kind of broaden the biological approach that EarthWorks has to land care.
But I think the most important thing you just talked about is that you went through the due diligence of finding the appropriate potassium sources that weren't going to damage the leaf system, and you got materials that would actually get in there pretty effectively, and that's where a lot of the shortcomings come in. We're spraying things that maybe aren't the best for the leaf surface and that whole phyllosphere.
Well, can I bring up another limiting factor that is much less scientific, much less agronomic, much less like kind of our passion, but it's also important?
Come on.
Okay.
Yeah, no. Next, what do you want to talk about? What? I'm sorry.
Well, these things have to function. They have to spray. They have to stay in solution. They have to exist in the jug, and that's also important.
We don't like this conversation.
Well, I remember Jerry Benetti calling me up, Lawrence. He said we're blowing the lids off the jugs.
You're like,
I go, yeah, we got a biologically active product here in the jug. So, as a product developer, there's two challenges with these products. Number one, how do we stabilize them in the jug? How do we, so they survive transport, they survive storage? What if they overwinter at 4 degrees centigrade, just above freezing, to try to just burn as little energy as you can, just keep them from freezing, and then you open them up in the spring and open them up and hope they're not all full of crystals.
Yes.
That's a huge challenge with products like these. You can do it with a single ingredient.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that.
That's right.
Linear products.
But that doesn't hit our other mantra, our other desire to eco-adapt.
So we're dealing with incredibly complex interactions within this solution. Then the other thing is compatibility with other people's products, what I call witches brews.
Oh, right.
My gosh, these guys call me up and they say, hey, they blended it with this, they blended it with that, and they put this herbicide in, they put this pesticide in. What's going on there? Lawrence is like, are you kidding me? It's like,
it's a fun conversation to have.
I'll get back to you on that one.
Slams the phone down.
So,
but we work at it. I mean, we work diligently at this and make big improvements.
Right.
So it is doable, and let's talk about it.
And a good example is what you just did with Calvantage. Calvantage is one of the most reactive products we have. Jack happens to have a full glass. Please don't drink that.
Hold on now.
Please don't drink that.
For the listener, I'm holding a full glass of newly formulated Calvantage.
Don't spill it on my carpet.
And how long did that sit?
Oh, this sat overnight, I believe.
Right.
Wow. All right, transferring from glass to glass. Sediment.
Thirsty, you want to go
Jerry will drink some of that.
Yeah.
I actually tasted it yesterday. It wasn't very good. So what we have here is we've got you worked very hard at the chemistry.
Yes.
We still have 3 forms of calcium.
Right.
And we still have a lot of the biochar foundation, and particularly your humates. That allows that calcium not only to be there, so the multiple forms, much like potassium, the K-Vantage, multiple forms give the plant the opportunity to kind of select which one's going to be most likely to get in, and we put all the cofactors in there that allow it all to get in.
Yeah, and in order to solve the precipitation problem on that, we had to run the data through a model program, and this program actually considered numerous factors to try to predict whether or not the product would precipitate, and this is what you're getting.
Actually, Lawrence just built, I think you know this, but Lawrence just built essentially a new laboratory
I got a lab.
in
I'm
your
psyched
office.
about that.
And he's showing me all this stuff. He's like, what the hell is that stuff? Well, this does this, and it's like,
it's an Imhoff sedimentation flask.
Yeah, that.
You never saw an Imhoff sedimentation flask?
No, I don't.
Well, I mean, it's a V-shape. It's a V-shape graduated cylinder. No,
it's not graduated.
Yeah, it's not that.
It's about a 1 liter capacity.
It's a V-shaped glass that. And why does it have that shape? And how does it?
And the top of it is spherical.
Okay.
The whole thing is round, and then it tapers down to the bottom. The intent is if something's going to precipitate or produce a sediment, it's going to happen in one of those flasks. And you can set a graduated cylinder full of material right next to it, and they don't behave the same. That's essentially what you did. You used a cylinder to test it overnight, but this Imhoff flask will encourage precipitation and sedimentation.
Oh, okay.
So that's what we're looking at.
That's the purpose.
How do we limit that so that those things don't get into the jug or into the tank and cause problems? And this particular formula that we just have released recently is just incredible.
So I set up the lab on small scale to mimic our process, our manufacturing process.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, in the time that we have left, I mean, we want to talk about some of the raw materials that we've been using. And because it's important, and I'm going to get back to what we call biocharge, which is these organic and mineral-based materials. And one of the things I think are so important in all of these products, when you ran the data tests, we found 75 minerals in the core material in what we're calling biocharge, which is the foundation of pretty much all these. And we also found 25 amino acids, all proteins mimicking a nitrogen, so it's allowing the plant to really do what the plant needs to do in order to create photosynthesis. So we've got all of that in all of these things, but we're starting with a couple things, and I'm going to walk through them. We use a lot of different sugars. We use molasses, we use fructose and sucrose. What's the purpose of this? Why?
Molasses brings a number of organic cofactors in there. Not only simple sugars, some more complex sugars in there. Yesterday I got curious what's in our molasses. I analyze everything, by the way.
Yes, he's a little overanalytical at times, but
yeah, and the analysis shows this is in molasses, one ingredient. Okay, there's calcium, there's strontium, cool.
I don't think we have time to go through that whole list you got there.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff.
Sodium nitrate.
There's 25 things. There's 25
That's
minerals
just in the molasses.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when we take this approach of diversity, we make sure that every ingredient that goes in there in itself is complex and very diverse. And then you said there's 75 elements. Well, that's interesting.
There's 40 right there.
That's interesting because in the agriculture world, there's these people that brag they have 90 elements in their product. Well, that's really interesting because they'd have to include uranium and thorium and all the radioactive elements and all the inert ingredients on the right side of the chart, which do absolutely nothing. Xeon, neon, all the eons, and they'd have to include things that aren't even naturally good things. They'd have to include cadmium. They'd have to include a lot of things. Arsenic would have to be in there, and mercury, in order to hit 90. You'd have to take a lot of nasties and put them in there too. So there are 75 naturally occurring elements in soil systems that plants and microbes utilize.
Yeah, it's hard to classify these.
And we have them all.
Yeah, we have them all. It's hard to classify our raw sources because you would think molasses, oh yeah, that's a carbon source, that's a sugar source, that's like an energy source, but it has all these minerals in
nitrogen,
them.
nitrates, phosphorus, potassium, rubidium, that complements potassium.
We don't have time for that.
Sulfur, chlorine.
But we talk about molasses and sugars as that quick energy for microbes. And so from a biological standpoint, we're putting these sugars in there to just get the microbes going and off, out of the
iron,
office.
manganese, zinc, sulfate.
It's going to continue.
Cobalt, molybdenum.
Well, it's good seeing you, folks. Just keep going.
So there's also all these elements, minerals.
Yeah. And all these products have that. But, again, we talk about the sugars to be the quick energy, and it is a quick energy. It starts the process. It gets them out of bed, off to work, and really hustling.
What's another kick butt?
But let me talk about this though. We don't want to have these linear things. Like a lot of guys. I've walked, and you've done the same thing. We walk into these shops, and they've got a big tank of molasses. They got a big tank of kelp. They got a big tank of fish, and maybe they'll do a little bit of this and that, or sometimes they just do molasses. And these linear approaches, and this is one of Jerry's big dissertations. These linear approaches are so. In fact, C3 was developed because I was trying to do a linear approach with just kelp, and he yelled at me for 2 hours. And finally, I said, "Okay, fine, make me something better." And that's what he came up with, which was our biggest selling product.
We had kelp, we had molasses, we had those ingredients, but we completely quantitatively determine what's in them first. Then, because you could pick any of those three and knock something way out of balance in the process.
That's right. Then you take all that and put it into the database, into the algorithm, so that you can then read if it's hitting the EcoAdaptive marks.
Right.
These ratios.
And you're looking at
so we're not just willy-nilly putting molasses in. Right. How much molasses you want to put in the day? I don't know.
Which is one of our favorite questions.
It's not like that.
Good
we know exactly how much molasses put in there because I just tried to read everything that was in there, and I look at everything that's in that molasses and how it balances against everything else that's in there. So you could overdo it. You could overdo sugar.
Well, and if we have too much sugar, the microbes are going to do nothing but eat the sugar. They're going to shut them down. Right. And Jerry and I, when we first started with Kick, and that was our first liquid, we struggled with how much. I remember Jerry vividly going through how how much of this sugar do we want? Because if we have too much, we're shutting down the microbes. And
Yeah, do you want a little drink of water, or do you want the fire hose stuck in there?
Exactly.
Big difference.
So the sugars are a big part of it. We're using desalinated seawater, which is to me a fascinating thing. And I guess I learned this last night, thinking Jerry had brought this to the table. In fact, it was you who brought it to the table many, many years ago. But we've been using that for a long time, and mostly, again, in this case, for the minerals. So you analyze it. You've got all these minerals.
Yeah, it's a proprietary product that we use, so we don't know how it's made. What we do know is that the sodium is reduced substantially.
Yeah, and it has to be.
So for a product developer balancing sodium against everything else, it's really well under control with that product.
When I talk to people about this, and they all kind of look
but it has 75 elements
on its own.
On its own.
Boom. Mm-hmm. Right there. And it's a very expensive product, so we're not using a lot. And again, we don't want that to overreact in the tank with other stuff. Yep. So I mean, that's why you're here. Is that chemistry piece of it is beyond our scope, and to really go through the analysis that you go through is pretty intense. But again, looking at 75 now, molasses 35. Fish is how many is in fish? So we're using fish meal. We're using kelp meal. There's 60 trace elements.
The
in
fish
kelp
are
meal.
growing in that seawater. So guess what's in the fish?
Good point. I hadn't even thought of it. And the kelp is growing in that seawater too.
Yeah,
so
they're all selectively building things. Like kelp have a relatively high concentration of selenium, for example.
Yeah.
And, that's great stuff for actually producing resilience against disease pressure.
Yeah.
Just
I remember during COVID.
You got the whole team talking. You should be taking selenium when COVID hit, and we're all taking it. Like nobody's got it yet. That's right.
We didn't get sick for years. Yeah.
I think I slowed it down, and boom, I got COVID.
See, that's another thing about chemistry. People understand to a chemist, there's called chemical speciation.
Yeah.
For example, bird, right?
Right.
There's a difference between that and robin.
Yeah.
Okay. The robin is a species of a large category. So if you say, I told you guys to take selenium, well, there's more to that story because selenium is highly toxic. It's a metal.
It was a tiny little pill.
Yeah, it's a metal. Actually, what I told you guys to take was sodium selenite.
Okay.
You actually gave us
Dr.
a brand.
Clark's.
Dr. Clark's,
Yeah.
in case anybody wants
Now
to
I'm talking chemistry.
Right.
To any chemist, anywhere, they fully understand the speciation that you're working with. Okay, this is a selenite. As soon as I say selenite, another chemist knows exactly what that is.
Got it.
What the oxidation state of that selenium is, how many oxygens are connected to it, and everything else. If it's a selenate, that's totally different. There's a selenite. So the language is important to a chemist.
Yeah.
It tells us what species we're working with. And when I started looking at natural soil systems, that's got to be looked at. What species are we looking at of calcium? The most commonly occurring mineral of calcium in natural systems through biomineralization. In other words, the plants and the microbes process the calcium, they interact, and out comes this stuff that's highly, let's call it, bioavailable.
Okay.
It's
nice term.
Not reactive, but it's bioavailable. In other words, a plant recognizes it, a microbe recognizes it. It has to be in a special crystalline form in order for them to recognize it, and it's a form. There's 240 forms of this. Calcium carbonate. So if you say, I put calcium carbonate, well, yeah, out of the 240 forms, which one did you use? Because they're not all recognizable by microbes. Only calcite is recognized. That's the only one recognized by microbes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let me go back through the list. So we talked about fish, talked about kelp, the seawater, the sugars. Talk about the lactobacillus that we're using.
Fermentation soluble fermentation. What?
It's more like a fermentation extract.
Okay.
Why?
Well, they're not. Okay, tea, for example, would have live lactobacillus in it.
Right.
Okay? And then you got to figure out how do you keep them alive? How do you keep them from blowing up the jug? How do you keep it from turning into something that stinks?
That's right.
We don't do that.
We don't like any of those things.
We let those critters do what they got to do while they're going through their processes of fermentation. And then what's left over are the solubles that are left over, and it's full of all kinds of growth promoting factors and elements and everything that we're seeking, and that's what we use.
Again, biologically
the growth
complex.
promoting factors that are left behind.
The growth promoting factors.
After after that fermentation process.
Very cool. And I think the same could be said for what we always refer to as worm tea, but again, it's more like...
It's not tea.
It's worm...
We got yelled at this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but
It's not. I mean, we're
worm
speaking to
cast.
Japanese people
Yeah.
about
the Japanese are going, tea?
Yeah.
it's not tea.
No, it's not worm tea.
So explain
It's
the worm. What are we
cast
calling it?
extract.
There's these things that actually Darwin first wrote about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Darwin wrote about the high nitrogen and phosphorus content of worm poop, worm castings. And there was an illustration in like an 1830-some book or something that he wrote. And it was on what
Something
they call
about species?
They used to call it garden mold back then instead of humus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, MOULDE. And the garden mold is what we now call humus. And he found out that part of the humus buildup was being really impacted by the number of worms that are bringing their castings up to the top of the earth.
Yes.
And depositing them and going back down to the... So what they're bringing up to the soil system are numerous microbes that live down below the surface.
That's interesting.
Already processed rocks. Rocks go in the worm and come out as poop on the other end.
Yeah.
They're much better than chickens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But they're similar to chickens.
Then he
actually.
observed. Then he
Yeah.
observed that rocks seem to be sinking into the ground in this scientific study. But he goes, no, it's the other way around. The rock's stable, and these guys bringing up all these worm castings are getting more and more and more around the rocks. The rocks look like they're sinking. So he did a lot of research on these castings, found out they're high in nutrients. And Eddie didn't know anything about biology back then as far as all the microbial activity. Now we know that these things are teeming with all sorts of beneficial factors. Again, we break them things up and extract out the goodies.
Yeah. So we basically let
A
them seep
lot of
out
carbon.
and we're getting the residuals.
Yeah, and a lot
Which
of
is
carbon.
really what a
A
lot
lot of
A
carbon.
lot of carbon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, is this kind of like what we talk about glomalin with
I would call it a
mycorrhizae?
complex carbon.
Okay.
I mean, carbon is graphite.
Yeah, that's
You know,
right.
But
Complex carbon.
these organic carbon materials are very complex.
And again,
materials.
what the industry calls worm tea, for sake of better term, and I know I'm wrong, so don't hit me again. But we're seeing a lot of that in the industry. But as a linear application, it's really not a great application because it pushes very hard. You got to use a lot, and you get a lot of growth. But having the amount that we incorporate into the products that you've developed have been very effective. That brings all these minerals and all these byproducts of the biological process that allow the biological process in the soil that we've applied these to really activate.
Nature designed these things for growth promotion.
Right.
And we're taking advantage of that.
Okay, so we got a couple minutes left. You're an expert on humic substances. I am deliberately not saying humic acids because you beat that into our head. But let's talk about it. I mean, first of all, we have actually found a humate material that is fairly soluble. Is there anything new in the humic substance world? And let's start by just giving a quick dissertation on what's the value of this in these products. I know one of them is to help us stabilize the products.
and how they're used in our products and where they're at.
Humic substances as a product, as an agricultural product, are renowned for increasing the efficiency, the use efficiency of all major nutrients, all micronutrients. So what they do is they play a role in soil systems in that they allow the conditions for microbial interaction with the soil colloids, with metals and microbes and organic matter. And they are part of the organic matter. They are the stable portion of organic matter. They persist for thousands of years if they're treated right. They disappear under high nitrogen application. It destroys them. So that's what we say. Part of this, there's organic matter now gone because of high input agricultural. That's probably the critical component right there that disappeared. Now you lose your efficiencies. So they're put in there for usage efficiency, but they also have a wonderful effect from a product developer standpoint of stabilizing the product, complexing and chelating cations, and they can actually stabilize nitrates and phosphates. Very
interesting.
Very, very.
And our products are so rich. That's why we always tell superintendents to put us in first.
That's right.
Because they're very buffered. They're very stable.
Highly buffered.
And so in these witches brews, us being the first thing in when everything else comes in, now we start to stabilize the tank. So some of these I mean, the reaction potential on these witches brew is unheard of chemically. I mean, he just, we talked, you've been with me on this.
Absolutely.
He goes, his head just explodes when he hears the witches brew.
You put what in it?
How much? Huh? You can't do that.
It's a slap in the face for formulators. We're trying to come up with products that we know are
Yeah.
effective. We test them all the time. And we know the science behind them, and then you do what?
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, you got an operation that's limited in labor, and you got a lot of stuff you got to get, and then they have to do that. I mean, this is what's going on in the industry, but we've worked around that and really made it happen.
Well, that's great.
Which
That's
is really good.
really good.
There's humic acids when I started was snake oil. That was all it was, and we were called every name in the book, mostly because of humate. Now you're seeing everybody in the industry using a humate. They're putting it attached to a synthetic fertilizer, nothing more than humate and a lot of salt fertilizer. Is it doing anything?
Yeah,
Is it making
it helps.
a difference?
It definitely helps those.
So we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah.
Oh, that caught on big when the fertilizers shot through the roof in 2008.
Which is when it started.
That's when it started.
Exactly.
And then the
Efficiency.
farmers were saying, hey, I heard these things extend my fertilizer dollar. They're all for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they started using them, and 2 years later, we had to form a group of industry members in order to get these humic products registered, because there was no way to analyze them. And if you can't analyze a product, a regulator is not going to approve it. There's no way. If you can't prove that what you claim is on your tag, you're not going to get it approved by a regulator. So 6 years later, we actually had the standardized analytical methods for humic substances.
And you're talking about the HPT or the humic
HPTA
product.
method.
And you'll see that on our labels. We're a proud member. And what it says is that everything that we do now has gone through the testing procedures.
Right.
We've gone through the expense, which is exorbitant.
So what you're claiming on your label is that
Is real.
your humic portion of your product is in compliance with the Humic Product Trade Association standards.
Right,
And
right.
Guess who developed standards? Anyway,
Which is nice to have. And the other, yeah.
He's in the hole.
Yeah.
Well,
the other
we
nice thing is that you look at all the new humates coming.
we also took that standard and improved upon it and established an international standard, ISO 19822, which is the international standard for quantitatively analyzing humic substances. And that is now the HPTA method.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
superseded the previous method.
So there's a couple new products out there. I mean, we're starting to play with one that we think is
Yeah,
very soluble.
over the
so
years.
there's some cool things happening even within the
over the
humic
years
acids.
when I saw soluble humic acids, and to me that was a huge red flag.
Yeah.
because they are almost always lignosulfonates.
Aha.
Almost-
Yeah.
they're the same color.
Which is
The other one,
a cheap
paper
shortcut.
industry.
A cheap shortcut, like into
Well, yeah.
tricking.
Yeah, they position them in the market as if they were the same as humics, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They do have some of the qualities, no doubt about it, and they should be positioning them by themselves because they are effective at what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
But they're somewhat limited compared to what they can do compared to the complexity of humic substances.
Yeah, yeah. So have we hit all the biochars? What about some like organic surfactants? Particularly, we're talking about Kick. I mean,
Right, Kick.
Kick's a really special product.
Yeah, it really is. It was the first thing we made, and it was at one point it was supposed to be the only liquid we had in the line, and the line evolved. But Kick has always been the what we used to call the ultimate soil conditioner because we wanted to help open up the soil, make it a better environment for soil biology, and so we brought in some of the organic surfactants, a lot of the humates, a lot of them. I mean, you smell molasses in that product.
Kick also has a bunch of mineral in it that we don't discuss that much.
Kick has hydrophobic fulvic acid.
Which is like that.
It has calcium, it has nitrate, it has kelp, it has boron, cobalt, copper. They're not even on the label, by the way. Manganese, nickel, molybdenum,
Giving away our secrets. We told you not to do
zinc,
that.
and molasses. 3 surfactants.
Yeah.
3 surfactants.
Yes.
Okay. Surfactant meaning
Meaning that it's going to change the behavior of water.
Okay.
It's going to change the way water adheres or peels off or sticks to something. And in this case, this product is designed to penetrate a soil. So, to me, this is a great thing to do if you don't want to do a full sodium out flush.
Yeah.
That's right.
You want to bring this product in because it'll penetrate the soil, it'll displace sodium, and it'll deliver all these micronutrients to the system and the humics. It's all there.
It'll complex that soil. Yeah, complex the sodium certainly. Complex? No. No.
Keep it
What?
from reattaching.
Well, you see, it's in a jug and it's already complexed.
Ah, okay, got it.
So what we're bringing.
No, we're talking about in the soil though. When we're trying to remove sodium,
Yeah, in this case, I don't.
it'll kind of grab it and keep it from
It'll
reattaching.
it'll act more like not quite like a detergent, but sort of similar to a detergent. And I think it's a great product because it'll deliver deeper into the soil system, cause things to move instead of just sitting on the surface.
That's also a product, by the way, that you have recently run through the EcoAdaptive
Yes.
like approach, and
Right.
also like have fixed some stability issues.
Tweak some of the surfactants.
Yeah, fixed some stability issues.
Yeah,
It
we
may
had
not-
a surfactant in there previously that was foaming.
right,
And back in the day, that's all we could get. When Jerry formulated, that's all we could get.
Yeah.
right.
But it foamed too darn much. I was hearing complaints in the field that that when they put it in the tank, it foams. Okay, we got to do something
Yeah,
about
I mean,
that.
I would put it into just a watering can, and half the, by the time it was half full, the foam was pouring out of the can.
So-
and it's much cleaner now.
It was really a matter
very
of
nice.
time that went by, and now there's some
Yeah.
really interesting surfactants
All right.
that we can get that weren't available before. Now we have this.
I hate to say this, but we're out of time. We're going to go to lunch, and but I want to say thank you very much for coming down and visiting with us.
You're
Had a
welcome.
wonderful day on the pasture walk. It was great to have Jack come in, and the brain trust of EarthWorks coming in and sitting down with us. So
It's a lot of fun.
I want to thank you, and we're going to have you back. We're going to either have you back on a Zoom call, or we'll force you to come down here. Or maybe we'll go to
We'll
Madison.
pack it out and go to
Well,
pack it up.
We did that a couple years ago. Madison is a nice
Yeah,
easy
it's
drive
nice
for you,
town.
and we'll take the road show and head out to Madison someday. But thank you so much for all you've done for us, and for sharing some of this and your elaborate notes here that I wouldn't let you go through. That is the EarthWorks podcast. Yes, he's got a lot of notes. Please subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, you're not going to be hearing about Lawrence Mayhew coming up on the podcast. And I want to thank everybody for joining us, and Jack and Lawrence for being with us again today.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.